is up, guys? Welcome back to OverTakes. This is Misfit, and today we're going to be previewing Week 17 in the Overwatch League, the second week of Countdown Cup Qualifiers. Talk about some teams. You know, there's a lot of big storylines going on. We're gearing up for the playoffs, and we're going to talk about where some teams stand and that kind of thing. First, before we dive into all that, I'd like to thank all you guys for joining me. All of your support has been greatly appreciated. Whether you've been here for 1 week or for the whole run, the last 4 years, thank you very much. And if you're new, thanks for stopping by. I do Overwatch League content 2 to 3 times a week. More if necessary, if there's big stories or something happening. And things change up in the offseason, obviously, that we have that coming up soon. All right, so let's talk about Week 17 in the Overwatch League. We have quite a few good matches, at least important matches, and some of the matches that are important also are, they're big matches for certain teams, and they're playing against weaker opponents, and it's going to shake a lot of things up as far as the standings and for the Countdown Cup and for the playoffs themselves. There's a lot of big games in APAC this week. Let's be honest about that. There's more at least good matchups that we have. We have Seoul, New York, and Philly playing kind of like a round robin between the three of them for the Countdown Cup and the playoffs, the playoff seeding and scenarios that are going to be involved over in APAC. Shanghai's also playing in Guangzhou, but Shanghai has stated, and we were talking about this on the wrap-up, they're kind of taking it a little easy this stage, which is understandable, but I also made the point of it's hard to put your foot back on the gas once you take it off. It's we saw that against New York. It was like, oh shit, New York is playing really well, and it seemed like the Dragons were trying a little bit harder. I mean, you saw how hard Fleta was playing and things like that. There was a lot going on there with them, but they're playing Seoul, and they have the Charge as well, which I don't think they're going to lose that match, but who knows who they're playing and whatnot. So at the first match, like I said, the Seoul Shanghai match, it's hard to really gauge that one. We're not going to talk about that one in depth. NA has some big matches too. The biggest one, of course, being another matchup between Dallas and Atlanta. We have Toronto playing Washington. Washington is kind of, we talked about them a lot last weekend, and Toronto is one of those teams on the cusp of like moving up and down. They're the closest team to the Mayhem, probably, if you really wanted to get that. Who has the most likely chance of getting knocked out the play-in round by the Mayhem, but who is also playing this week, but I wouldn't expect too terribly much. They have Atlanta and Boston, which are probably going to be losses, but who knows? We'll see what happens when things start shaking down. All right, so the big matches of the week this week are in APAC, at least the compelling matches. We have New York and Philly and Seoul. Now, those are the two matches I want to go over. We also, that's right, I forgot Chengdu's playing too. We have New York Chengdu. There's a lot of stuff going on over there. All right, so let's dive into this. Now, the first match we're going to talk about, spend a little time on, Philly, New York. All right, last week both of these teams played fantastic. Philly put their foot down and said, hey, we're still here. We're raring, ready to go. They beat Shanghai, who was kind of, sleeping a little bit. But that doesn't take away from the fact that they beat them handily, and they showed that they can play up to the level. Philadelphia showed that they're way better than we thought in this matter, even though Shanghai was sleeping. They handled the Spark pretty well, and we got to see Shockwave a little bit in that one. Kind of like put him in instead of Carpe, and they ran Shockwave EQO. That seemed to look pretty good. New York, of course, they handled the Valiant, and then they destroyed any of our notions of New York being a bad team by coming out and beating the Dragons, who seemed like they were trying. If you go back and watch that match, they were playing a lot harder in that match than they were in the Philly match. Philly still, like I said, I keep saying this, but Philly did destroy them pretty easily, whether they were trying or not. Philly played really well. New York played extremely well against the Dragons. They ran a bunch of cool comps and stuff like that. They looked really good. Their DPS are fantastic. Jonak looks back in form. They were running some stuff with Gakpong and Kalios that looked really good. I'm really impressed by what they've been doing. And they're going into a match with Philadelphia, who they've beaten twice already, and are looking to do it again. Now, I think this is a different animal. I could be very well one of the few people that are thinking that Philadelphia has a bigger shot in this than people are giving them credit for. A lot of people are saying that it's New York. New York is going to take them. Yeah, all right. There's that specter of they kind of have their number this year. It's a bad matchup for Philadelphia, whatever you want to say. But Philly right now, as of last weekend, they played some of the best Overwatch that they've played since the middle of last year when they were atop the NA standings before, obviously they moved over to APAC. Their synergy seems to be there is the big thing with Philadelphia because they were always, dog barking aside, they were kind of, back to Philadelphia. So they were a little disjointed and stuff like that when they brought the other guys in. And it seemed like a mess. A lot of it was, to me, communication, synergy, all of the things because, they're a highly skilled team. Everybody on that team has been some sort of role star or something. I don't think Hotba has, but he might have been in Season 2. But anyway, they're leaning on some of these comps that are comfortable for their players. And you know what? Like I've said in the past, that builds some confidence and things, especially when it's working well like it has been for Philly. They were playing a lot of Zarya, doing things like that their players are good at. The Genji thing, I'm on the fence with Genji right now. I don't know how that's going to work out, but if you can make it work and you know how to the ins and outs and the alt rotations and all that stuff for that comp, it can work, and Philly's making it work. So I'm not as down on Philadelphia as I was going into this after watching them, seeing the matches they played. They have to win. And, so does New York, and so does Seoul in these matches. But they have to win, and they have to get in order to, solidify a spot in that top 3 that they want to do, and not have to deal with the play-ins and whatnot and what have you, they're going to have to, or the top 2, I should say, they have to surpass Seoul, which is going to be a hard ask, which they're going to have to beat later on in the week. We'll talk about that match in a little bit. But they have to do that and go to the tournament and get some extra points to surpass Seoul. So I'm looking for Philadelphia to come out guns blazing, ready to go, and they're going to be hard to beat. Now, New York has been playing fantastic, like I said. The best thing that's going for them is that their tank line is not underperforming anymore. All they needed in the first couple of stages was for that Bianca Yakpong line to play reasonably well because their DPS are so fantastic that you just needed some play out of them, some space being made, but they just weren't doing it. And we got Kalios in here, and he's doing fantastic. He has been providing them with the support and the extra stuff that they needed on Diva that I don't think Bianca could do. He's supporting Yakpong. They have really good synergy right now. He's doing things like peeling. He's taking care of the Pharas in the air, which is a big concern right now with the meta and stuff like that. He's doing a lot of work. And it opens it up for Flora and Gwangbun and Feather to do their thing. And it's also creating room for Jonak to do his stuff. He's just playing like he did reasonably close to Season 1. He was insane in Season 1, and it was a whole different format, different style of play that they had. But he's locked in. He is ready to go, and I'm liking what I'm seeing from him, too. It's just classic Jonak stuff. Hitting, especially playing Ana and Zen. His BAP is decent enough, but, the Zen Ana thing for him is where his bread's buttered. And if you get him into these situations where he has a chance to play Zen or Ana and has space and can keep people up, but also do the things like hitting sleep darts, taking care of just whatever, DPS output from him on those 2 heroes is fantastic, and you give him that space, it's going to be hard to beat them. But the thing is Philadelphia's support line is also right in sync too. Alarm playing fantastic. Funny Astro looks like he's getting back into form. With that DPS line rotation of Shockwave, Carpe, and EQO, they seem to be playing a little bit more. I think they want to play some Shockwave more, depending on what they're going to do. They might like a Sombra a little bit better if they're running a Sombra Pharah thing or something like that. or Genji or however they're going to work it. This is how I see this match coming down in this match. I see the Fusion taking it 3-2, close match. With my normal disclaimer in matches like this, New York could win this. But I'm taking Philadelphia. I just like the way they've been playing. I like the way New York's been playing too. But I like the momentum that Philadelphia and the confidence I think that they've built up last week. They seem to have this us against the world mentality, which, fits Philadelphia and their fans and everything about it to a T. But they have this focus right now that I think is going to carry them over New York by a small margin, a very thin line. I think New York is underrated right now. Well, maybe not underrated. A lot of people are talking about them. It's like, oh, New York, good, beat Shanghai. This has been kind of building, and once Kalios got in there, they've looked a ton better. But, yeah, I got Philly in this one. All right, let's talk about the next Philly match. All right, we got Philly versus the Seoul Dynasty. So this one is going to be a little bit different just from the aspect of the way Seoul plays, and I think it's going to flesh out a little bit differently, obviously, than New York. Seoul likes to do, we'll talk a little bit more about Seoul here. Seoul likes to do, at least right now, they're doing kind of these bunker comps and things like that, kind of the Atlanta-ish vibe of APAC. I don't know if it has to do with who they were playing and they were working on other stuff. They did have the Valiant and Hangzhou, and I think they thought they could kind of just go in and beat both of these teams just trying this out and keeping other things, dive comps and things like that could potentially be necessary down the road in this tournament cycle in their back pocket. They do play them really, really well. I like the way that the direction that they're going in. They're doing something a little different in APAC. They're trying to counter instead of trying to join the hive mind kind of thing by playing dive. Can they? I'm sure they can. And, as with everything with this team, it hinges upon, at least right now, and they're highlighting it by playing these comps, in my estimation. The way I see it is Fitz and Profit are the go button. When Fitz and Profit are on fire and doing what they do, one or both of them, if they're having those games where they're just hard carrying on whatever they're playing, we saw some Torb coming out with Profit. That looked pretty good. I kind of like that look that they were doing with that kind of, like I said, kind of that Atlanta comp thing. It's working out pretty damn well. Now, is it going to work against Philly? It's really hard to say, but one of the other things I didn't touch on in that, it's all about Profit and Fitz. But 2U is playing a really, really good off-tank right now. A lot of it kind of gets swept under the rug or gets, overlooked because of, obviously, Profit and Fitz, but also because they're in APAC and, you don't see them as often. So you get to see Hanbin and Hawk and Punk and some of these guys that were playing really well this week. You get to see them live. They're on a different time, better time, etc., and what have you. You know what I mean with that. So I think those three components are playing really well. Now they're running Gesture, at least he did last weekend, more. His Orisa is really good. So, we can see where he can do it. And he can switch into Monkey if you want to go into Dive, and his ball is decent enough. I did say that I like Marvel better in the last meta, at least. And I kind of like the synergy they had going. But, if you're going to go with Orisa and you're going to do these comps like that, Gesture is the guy to go to, at least in this situation. And if you need to switch off and go into Dive, he can play Monkey, he can play Ball. It's going to work out. It was against the Valiant and the Spark. Two of the three, not bad, but the three, one team bad. Two of the three teams that are underperforming in this region right now. So it's hard to say if they were just doing it to get him time to see how he does and do what he does on these heroes, or if it's just a switch for this meta that they want to go hard into the Orisa bunker comps with the option to switch off. With Marvel, you have the kind of the opposite, and I like Marvel's Reinhardt a little bit better. So if you're not running Reinhardt comps, you might not want Marvel in there. So I get that, but they looked decent enough against the Spark. Obviously, they buried the Valiant, but it all comes down to Profit and Fitz and what they do. Like I keep saying, But gesture is a big part of this as well. If he's in there and he's playing a high level Orisa, like he's been known to do in the past, this is going to be a hard thing for Philly to break. But Philly right now, like I said in the last preview with the NYXL, they have something to prove here. I think they're doing the, like I said, us against the world thing, but also they have the components and the guys to be able to counter this and play against it really well. You have EQO who can do Genji and Pharah, things like that could screw this comp up. The one factor that you have on Philly is a very versatile DPS line that can take care of this, and your support line is miles, and I mean miles better than Seoul. Yes, Creative and Animo are playing better. They look better than they have, but they're not on the level of Funny Astro and Alarm. This is where this team, Philly that is, does things and pulls matches out and is able to take care of business in some of these big matches that they have coming up. If these two guys are on the level, they're ready to go. Their synergies are all good. They're just playing at the level that we know them to play at. They're hard to beat because nobody dies, and they're taking guys out too on top of it. You get Alarm on Zen, that might be a hard break for this comp that the Dynasty are running here. I really like what Philadelphia showed this week against, Shanghai, not trying, whatever. Still Shanghai, though. Still high-level players, and they buried them. Even at certain points when it looked like Shanghai was like, oh, fuck, these guys mean business, they are not screwing around. Philadelphia is playing for their lives. Seoul is in a comfortable spot and is trying things out, but they're still playing at a high level. I like, and I'm going to go out on a limb on this one, I'm going to go Philly again here. I'm going to go 3-1, and they bust this bunker comp that the Dynasty are running. I mean, the Dynasty could come up with something totally different at some point in this match, but I think that Philadelphia right now is playing at a level where they can beat anybody in this division, aside from maybe Shanghai when they're trying their best. I think that would be a close match, 3-2-ish kind of thing. But I'm going 3-1 Philly in this. So those are the two highlighted matches I got for the week. I could have gone with a couple more in NA, but there really wasn't anything that struck me as something I wanted to spend time on, really, if you get down to it. Yeah, we could have talked Toronto and Washington, but I think Washington's kind of done. And even if they do their normal Washington, oh, we figured out the meta. Hi, guys, we're here again. We're here for the party. But they're done. To me, Washington's done. I'm done talking about that team, and we'll discuss them in the rundown with the picks. So you'll see where I'm going. We do have Atlanta and Dallas. I think it's going to be a lot of similar stuff here. Dallas doing their dive stuff versus Atlanta doing their bunker stuff. I could talk about this for a couple minutes here. I think it's going to be kind of another close match. I don't know who's going to come out on either side of this one. I'm leaning towards Atlanta, but I still have a lot of faith in Dallas in that, and I'll tell you who I'm going to pick during the rundown. But we're going to get a lot of the same stuff like we said last week at the beginning. Atlanta is doing kind of their Chengdu and playing what they're strong at, and it seems to be working really well. And, it's a formula to get into the tournament, get to Hawaii, and get your points. Because they're playing for points in this. So is Dallas in a sense, but I think Dallas is going to test some things out. They're going to keep running ball. They're going to keep trying to get the ball thing going, and the more they get Fearless comfortable on it, and the more they get comfortable synergistically with playing these comps, the better they're going to be against APAC later down the road. And I know they're going to try stuff against Atlanta in this, so it's going to be a fun match to watch. But I really wanted to focus on the two big Philadelphia matches for the week. We could have talked Chengdu, New York, but Philadelphia had the two biggest matches in my mind. So there we are with the highlighted matches and the explanation of why. All right, so now, guys, you know what time it is. It is time for the weekly rundown, where I go through the whole Overwatch League schedule and pick every match with a map score in rapid fire format. So, without further ado, let's get to the rundown. All right, let's go. All right, starting off the Overwatch League, Week 17, Week 2 of Countdown Cup qualifiers. Here we go. Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Starting off, we have the Toronto Defiant taking on London Spitfire. I got Toronto 3-2. Next up, we have the Boston Uprising taking on the Vancouver Titans. Boston 3-0. Moving over to APAC, 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturday morning. We have the Philadelphia Fusion taking on New York Excelsior, like we talked about before. I like Philly 3-2. Next up, Seoul taking on Shanghai. I have Seoul 3-2 in this one. Last match for Saturday in APAC, I have the Chengdu Hunters 3-0 over the Guangzhou Charge. Back to NA, Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Dallas Fuel taking on the London Spitfire. I have Dallas winning 3-1. Next up, Atlanta Reign taking on the Florida Mayhem. Atlanta 3-0. Last match of Saturday in NA, we have the Toronto Defiant taking on the Washington Justice. I have Toronto 3-1. Now, over to APAC, Sunday morning, 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. As we just talked about, Philadelphia Fusion over the Seoul Dynasty 3-1. Next up, Chengdu versus New York. I have New York 3-2 in this one. Final match for APAC for the weekend. Shanghai taking on the Guangzhou Charge. Shanghai Dragons 3-1. Okay. Back to NA for Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have Boston taking on Florida. I have Boston winning 3-1. Next up, Atlanta taking on Dallas. Big rematch. I have Atlanta winning 3-2. Final match of the weekend in NA and for the league entirely. Washington taking on the Vancouver Titans. I have the Justice winning 3-1. All right, guys. That's going to do the rundown for Week 17. Okay, so that's going to be it for this one, guys. So we talked about a couple different matches, got the rundown in. I'm looking forward to seeing how everything shakes down. Of course, recap-wise, we're going to go over standings and where teams are placing and stuff like that, before, for the playoffs and for, of course, the Countdown Cup, which next weekend we're going to have a couple of, earlier episodes because we do have a knockout round for the Countdown Cup. So we do have matches on Thursday, so I will have things up earlier than my normal schedule. So be aware of that, with the recap on Monday and the preview on Wednesday of next week. I'd like to thank you all for joining me. All of your support's been greatly, greatly appreciated. If you're new, thanks a lot for stopping by, guys. Hope you like what you heard. Please hit a like, hit a subscribe if you did. That would be fantastic. All the YouTube jazz, you know the drill. This is Misfit. I'm out. Everybody stay safe. Have a good rest of your day. And I will talk to you on the next one.